Hello and welcome. This is a overrated, underrated tier list on some random WWE superstars. This seems like very dangerous slope that piss off people for whatever reason. but to be honest, I feel like you know it's obviously your opinion with some of these superstars, but I feel like um, yeah, we'll see when I go around and see where it goes. Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura is one of those I feel is underrated. It's one of those things that I think he's very talented. I liked his heel turn with going after Cody and all that. I feel like Cody was the bad call to put him up against because he basically called him like, oh yeah, he's the boss and he's the thing. So after that, it was like, okay, then well, what do you do with this character? Because he's already said that the person he's been waiting for is Cody Rhodes. I think it was just a bad call there. So I'm gonna go that he's underrated because I feel like they could do a lot more with him. I think he's a phenomenal wrestler. I think he does a lot of stuff out there. His once they let him speak in Japanese and do his promos, I think they worked out really well. And I think they just need to put him in a position where he's going against talent that's in the mid card and that he's destroying to build him up for a bigger boss fight with somebody else, like they were doing, like almost just a soft reset. And that's why I say he's underrated. I feel like he is like that's what it is. Like he's just that way. Like he should be in a better position than he is. Next up is Rock. It's hard to say anything about The Rock on social media of like without somebody being either way on it. I think The Rock coming back this second run. I think between his time before WrestleMania to WrestleMania, I think he was doing phenomenal work. I do not think he needed to come back out there after and have that weird exchange with Cody Rhodes. I really don't think he needed to have that Brahma People's Champ thing. But he's still The Rock. I think he's fairly rated. I think everybody knows who he is. I don't think anybody underestimates how good The Rock is. I'd almost say like he's trending towards underrated because of like a lot of people not thinking he was going to be able to come back and do a lot. I think he definitely was a little bit more gassed than he probably was used to. I mean, he's obviously in phenomenal shape, but wrestling is completely different than just being in good physique. And I think he knows that, and I think he got into a position. But I think if he has more time, I think like this whole thing was a pivot. I think they definitely were going Cody going against Seth and the opposite with Rock and Roman. I think that's kind of how they were going, and I think that would have been a little bit different than them having to do basically 2 nights of work. I think one solid match against Roman Reigns, I think Roman would have been able to keep him going. So I'm going to say he's fairly rated. It's a kind of a hard thing to say. With Drew McIntyre, I don't know where you'd really put him because like he is a main event talent, and I think like he's trending to try to get this championship back. So to me, I think he's fairly rated. I think he's a phenomenal heel, and I think everybody knows that. So it's kind of hard to say like he's definitely not underrated because he's getting his flowers, he's getting his things, but he's definitely not overrated because he deserves all that, and so I think he's fairly rated. Solo Sikoa right now, and this might be the one that people will be flip flop. I think he's overrated in the thing that they have him losing nonstop. His whole thing was like, oh, you can't lose, and he told that to his, to Jimmy, and then beat the crap out of him. But then he loses all the time. I think like it was just a weird storyline to put him in. I think when they build him up as the new tribal chief, he will be extremely well, developed. But right now, I think he's overrated as being like this monster when he's not shown that since he lost, or since he beat Cena. Like he beat Cena, it looked great. It could have done great for him, and I just don't think it did. I don't think it's just been a goose egg of what they needed. So I think he's overrated at the moment. I think once they get him built into the storyline and starting to get some more wins, I think he will become appropriately rated. But at the moment, another one is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is an interesting story to me because I love Cody Rhodes. I think him winning the championship was the right decision. But I think people expect too much of him to a certain extent. I think they're wanting him to fail, and I think that they're just expectations for him are just too insanely high, and I think that's what's making him feel that he's overrated at the moment. It's a weird statement to say, but like I feel like if you think about it, with everybody thinking that Cody's reign is gonna either be stale or boring and all that, and everybody is just doing that to him and putting like, well, he's just doing the same promos, he's doing all this, and everybody's like, okay, yeah, he's already overrated, and that's how they're feeling he is. I think they just got to let him go out there and cook and do all of his stuff, and I think it will develop the way that we want it to. But I think at the moment he's overrated because of the expectations. You know, people think he's gonna have to go out there and have the best title reign ever to match Roman's, to be the reason why he took off Roman's, and I don't think he needs that. He can do his own way, and it will still be phenomenal for whatever story comes from it. And yeah, that's how I feel. Next up, we got Naomi. Naomi's one of those people. I don't. It's like it's hard to say because I don't know where people's ratings are. Like it'd be interesting if like somebody's like out of 10, Naomi's 7 or whatever, and then they'll be like, well, yeah, then she's definitely underrated. And I feel like in general that's kind of the general statement. I think people don't necessarily always see Naomi as a main talent, but I think she is, and I think WWE sees it, and I think they're going to give her that opportunity. I feel she's going to go into a bit of a slump after this Bayley rivalry because I think they don't know necessarily what to do with her, but she should have some good matches against Damage Control. Again, I think like it's eventually going to drill up, and they're going to have to find her a new story thread. But I think for the time being, she's underrated to what I think people are thinking. Logan Paul. I think the average person doesn't like Logan Paul. I think the average person doesn't believe he belongs in wrestling. So I think you would have to put him in underrated. I think he's done phenomenal work. I hate his guts outside of the ring, but inside the ring, he's done amazing stuff out there. And he's done really good with the brand. So I don't think you can say that he's been bad or good, you know, because I think he's just gone there and done his job like any other superstar. And I think he's underrated. Next up, we got Bayley. Bayley's title reign has just started, so it's kind of hard to say where she's going to go with it. I think Bayley in general is fairly rated. She's a GOAT. She's one of the 4 horsewomen for a reason. She's had so many she's had 2 really strong gimmicks, both heel and babyface. I think all of that, everybody knows she's, great wrestler. So I think everybody kind of feels that she is the champion and should be the champion. So I think that's where it goes. Next up is LA Knight. Now, LA Knight's going to be a difficult decision because I feel like if you go for like the average LA Knight fan, they think he should be a world champion and it should be, all of that. And I don't think he's proved that he can be a championship material yet because we don't know how he's going to be as a champion because he's never held a championship at all. So I don't think he should be in that main title run. We should see him in a smaller title run first. I think that's just kind of the plain and simple thing because we don't want him to lose all that mustard I don't know, lightning in the bottle, all that stuff. I don't even know what I was saying, mustard, but yeah. Yeah. I'm going to have to go with overrated I feel like people are expecting too much of him, and I think they kind of dropped that expectations. It's kind of just a weird phrasing when you think of somebody being overrated because you don't know exactly where everybody rates somebody. Because somebody might be like, well, I think LA Knight's still kind of a jobber. Then it wouldn't be overrated, but like I guess that's where it goes. Austin Theory, I think, is fairly overrated. I think he just had that bad time of being Vince's guy, and I don't think we really got to see what he had in like himself. I think he kind of got pushed up to the main roster, pushed into this role, and I think he's just kind of been piecing it together as we go along, even up to him beating John Cena last WrestleMania that he just did nothing with. The Money in the Bank he did nothing with. I think that just puts him all into that overrated category. Again, depends on where you rate him because a lot of people rate him very low and would probably say he's fairly rated. Next up is Chad Gable. He's phenomenal in the ring. He's phenomenal on the mic. I think he's great. I'm going to say he's underrated because he still hasn't had that championship. And I think him being a heel, I think he's going to even do better work. And if he doesn't get a championship, then I definitely think that would be an underrated thing. Bianca Belair. I think everybody knows Bianca is badass, and I think uh, I don't think there's. I think she's fairly rated. I mean, I don't think she's underrated at all. I think everybody knows she's like a pretty much a top five talent. At least that's how anybody I've ever talked to definitely has Bianca in their top five. I think I have Bianca in my top five for sure. Even if she's not having a championship on her, she's main event level caliber, ready to go. You could plug and play her in either championship right now, and she would be phenomenal in it and have a phenomenal match with whoever is in there. So I think that puts her in the fairly rated. Next up is Damian Priest. I don't actually know where to put Priest because he just got the title. If you look at just his tag team runs, I think the tag team run was solid. I think him as Mr. Money in the Bank wasn't the best. I do think the decision to put him in there and the long term story of what ended up happening, it worked out perfect because like there was so many other people that we thought it was going to be, not so many, but we did think LA Knight I think was the going person that people thought, or maybe even like Logan Paul. So like I think with that being said, I think that's where we see Damian Priest. Like he's done a lot of stuff, but it didn't really work out. But he finally did get the championship, so I'm gonna put him in overrated at the time being. I think he is riding that high of being champion, but I think he's got to back it up with some really good matches to show that he really is the right choice. I think he will fairly be out of that overrated by the end of summer, depending on what they do with his storyline. Because if they give him the right people to match with and the right stories, I think he'll be able to bring it back into being fairly rated. Next up is Finn Balor. I think Finn Balor honestly is underrated right now. I think he's still an amazing talent, but I don't know what they know what to do with him. I don't think they know. Because now they just have the tag team titles, and if he doesn't turn on Damian Priest, where do you put him? Do you put him in a tag team with JD? That seems like something they might do, but where else can you put him? He's not like he's gonna have probably a mid card title shot, and maybe you can, but I think that's why you just put him in underrated, because I feel like he deserves more. I think he deserves to be on a higher class of at least in the mid card area, and I think he's trending towards the lower mid card at the moment. Once they took those tag team titles off of him, I think you can really see where like they don't really have necessarily a plan that they've shown us yet, other than maybe being with Damian Priest going after him. So at the moment, underrated. Next up is Dom. I think Dom is fairly rated because I think people all knowing that he has some work that he needs in the ring, and that he's extremely over as a heel. So I think like you have those two combination things, and I think that puts him right where he is. Like they know he's a good heel. They know that he could definitely use some work. I don't think anybody would disagree with either one of those. So I think he's just fairly rated. Grayson Waller, to me, is a little underrated. It's just a little bit. Because I feel like they use him in kind of like how the Miz role was, like where he's on the talk show. He's kind of the people that just says bad things and all that, and which is a great role for him. But I think he's also like pretty good in the ring. Like he's had some really good matches, and being the tag team champions, I think will put like the more respect on him of like being a wrestler first and then an entertainer second. I know it's weird to say because they're all entertainers, but just in that part that he's not just the Grayson Waller effect. And so if that's the case, I think that's where you kind of put him as a little underrated right now. I think once he gets this title reign, even if it's a short title reign, I think that will put a lot more him to put him like in fairly rated. But it'll probably be a little bit until he gets another opportunity after this. Gunther is, I would say, fairly rated. I mean, I think everybody knows he's the best Intercontinental Champion of all time. Maybe that would be something to debate. I don't know. I don't think there's much of a debate. I know there's been a lot of people that had the Intercontinental title that's been great and done great things in their career, but I don't think anybody's elevated that title to to where it is right now. And he was just had good matches. I mean, he just had a lot of good matches as the title holder. So I think that puts him in fairly rated. I don't think people would view him as underrated, and I don't think anybody has such a high opinion that he was like, oh, he's the greatest of all time yet, because he's still working there. And I think once he gets that world title and belt underneath his experience, I think that will really push him over. Randy Orton is another guy. Like, who out there thinks Randy Orton sucks? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I've never heard anybody not think Randy Orton's great. Um, he has so many title reigns, and he just has a phenomenal character work, phenomenal everything. He's been in great tag teams. He's done amazing work with even unlikely people. Like, I never liked Rated RK Bro with Matt Riddle, but I think Randy Orton salvaged that being an okay gimmick and just a lot. So I think he's fairly rated. I don't really think anybody really thinks Randy Orton's bad. Maybe someone in the comments does. I don't know. Like, tell me if you think so. I don't know. I've never really heard anybody say it. Roman Reigns. I'm actually going to put Roman in the underrated category. I think nobody will really digest what he means to the WWE until he's in this long break and we see somebody else with the championships. I think that's the problem with Cody's gonna have, is that he's gonna be compared to Roman's fame, and people are gonna be happy that Cody's defending it as much times as humanly possible, and I'm glad with that. But I think the story that Roman had with the bloodline and with the title reign and stuff will never be matched anytime in probably my lifetime, unless WWE really falls out of having this endless amount of superstars that they're creating. So I feel like with that, it's just Roman's here. He's been there, and I think he's underrated because I think some people would not even have him on like their Mount Rushmore of even like modern wrestlers. Like, I can understand like if you're all time the Mount Rushmore fan is a very hard subject for people, but when you think of like the modern wrestler, I think he should definitely be up there. And that's even like, I've not always said the best things about Roman. Nothing against him personally. I do feel that he could have had some more title reign or title opportunities given last year, but that is nothing that I know if he was hurt or if that was what they chose. It's nothing against him. I don't know if he's like, hey, I only want to have a couple, and then if that was the case, he should have had a little bit more, but he had so many before that and done so much stuff, and he finally got over as the tribal chief. And I think the bloodline storyline is still going to be cooking for another like 1 to 2 years. So if it just continues with pedal to the metal, it's going to be great, and Roman's going to be there. So he's underrated. I think. I don't know where. I know some people are going to have him obviously as like their GOAT. So like underrated seems weird, but I think the average person has blinders from the last year of his title to really know what he accomplished in that time of having the belt. Next up is Seth Rollins. I feel like Seth Rollins. This one's a rough one. I think he gets the flowers on how much of a hard worker he is. But I don't feel like everybody always feels that like some of the other stuff, like he's been cashed in on so many times, even though he has the greatest cash in of like all time. But he's been cashed in on a lot. He's taken a lot of bumps, even just with like all the stuff that just happened in WrestleMania. I'm gonna say Seth Rollins is underrated. It's kind of just a weird thing, I guess, from talking to average people, because I talk to a lot of people about wrestling, and a lot of people don't like Seth Rollins, and I don't know why necessarily. I don't really know what their glaring, thing is to be like whatever he is, but I feel like he's been an amazing talent for the last 10 years for sure, and if not longer. I don't even know. It feels longer, like, at this point. Next up, we got The Miz. I think what The Miz is currently doing is underrated. I think, like, with him and R-Truth, I think is, pretty solid tag team, decent story and stuff. But I think, like, if you look at his entire career, he's always been kind of underrated. But I think people have still known that he's great, but, like, in their way. The Miz is always one of those people that I think like people either love or hate him. Um, I feel like I'm in between. I appreciate what the Miz has done. Like he's been a great character, but I don't like his character. But that's not has nothing to do with him. It's just like his character I don't like. So I'm gonna put him fairly rated because it just feels like some people have him mixed in there. Next up we have Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens, honestly, is one of those wrestlers like I never thought I'd like to a certain extent, but the guy's just good. I mean, he just goes in there. He has some good comedy to it. He's just kind of himself, and he does what he's got to do. And I think that's signs of a great wrestler. So I'm gonna put him as fairly rated. I think a lot of people have that type of thing. Actually, put him in underrated because I think some people don't. I don't think people always feel the same about him, but I guess we'll see. Next up, we have Rhea Ripley. Um, how can you not say the title reign that she just had that wasn't great? I think a lot of people didn't like this last year on some of the matches. I think that was less of her and just more that I think they should have booked him a little bit better. Overall, she's great on the mic. I think she's really good in the ring. Um, I'm gonna have to probably put her towards. I don't know. People think she's kind of the goat right now, and I think she still needs more time under her belt. So I'm gonna put her at the moment as fairly. Put her as underrated, maybe. I don't know. Rhea's honestly the hardest one here. Um, I'm gonna go fairly rated. I think if you think that she's had a decent title run and one of the top three women that is in the company right now, I think she is. Um, if you think she's the greatest, I don't think that necessarily means that she's done that. She's definitely not the best women's wrestler of all time, because she hasn't been around enough to even qualify for that. But I think overall, she's been phenomenal. And that's the list. Tell me what you guys would think. I think this is one of those that has a lot of spark of debate. People might not like where I put Cody Rhodes. It's a weird one. I'll be honest myself. I just feel like Cody's title reign needs to be something different and needs to be just great. I don't know, but in its own way, because it's going to be compared to Roman. I mean, it's just you can't not do that. So I think that's going to make it overrated, make him overrated until he can really prove that this reign is him. I guess that's weird to say, but I could be wrong on that. But until next time, bye guys.